Hello, everybody. This is Reiko Inari here. I am here with Kurenai Kenta. He is an illustrator that does sketch art and also VGen. And this is going to be voiced by my friend Kean. So, hello. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Let us begin with the questions. All right? All right, let's see. What is your best childhood memory?
I have to say, probably spending about 6 years out of a country other than Japan.
Oh, that sounds great. I like traveling as well. You know, I'm gonna leave that one alone. What type of music do you typically like to listen to?
I listen to a lot of rock, metal, and punk from about the 1970s to the 2000s.
Whoa. I like 1980s music. I just can't get out of it. It's like it's stuck in my brain. But yeah, it's nice to have such a wide range of music that you like. So, what do you like to do to relax before preparing for your day?
I like to play the electric guitar and just kind of go out for the night.
Okay. So you're a musician. You know, usually somebody who is into music, usually they like math or they like art. You know, I always wanted to really get into music, but never could. It's just like, I want to play the piano, I'm not very good at it. Want to play the violin, I'm not very good at it. But you play the electric guitar, that's pretty darn cool. So, moving on, what is the biggest misconception you think people have about the art field?
At least for me, I don't think there really are any misunderstandings or correct answers, because the way work is perceived really kind of varies from person to person and from era to era.
I see. So, do you have a routine that you follow before you start bringing the illustrations to life?
I really just sort of try to collect the best quality materials that I can find.
You know what? So when I was drawing by hand, and I still do, I feel like I can only draw with a mechanical pencil. So I totally get it. And it had to be this one particular mechanical pencil. And if the lead break all the time, I could not focus on drawing. I was focusing on the lead breaking. So I completely understand. So, do you have anyone encouraging you along the way?
If anything, I'd have to say maybe fans encouraging me. I like to look back at the comments that people have made about my illustrations.
I see. And it looks like you have a lot of people encouraging you as well. Like, I see a lot of comments on your Twitter. Well, X. I have to remember to call it X. But, yeah. And that can be really cool to look at. And you can always look back at it and get feedback as well. Positive feedback. And it can help you grow. So, before we continue, I would like to know your thoughts on art education. Did you attend or plan to attend school for any sort of art-related classes?
I've not attended any particular schools. I'm mostly self-taught.
I see. So, do you want to attend in the future?
I plan to take a few courses on sites such as Colosso rather than study at a school.
I see. I recently heard about Colosso, and I ended up getting like a live 2D class, but it was kind of short for me. It was like really short. They went over mostly the art illustration side of it, and they didn't really go into much depth of the rigging part of live 2D. So I'm a little curious about it, but they do offer a lifetime attendance to the class. So I'm curious about their other classes, and maybe if they have free trials or like a couple of classes you can look into, like Udemy, because I was familiar about Udemy prior. So yeah, I am curious, and I'm surprised that Colosso is a thing in Japan as well. So, question, do you feel that it's necessary to go to an art school to learn animation and to become successful? And why or why not?
Honestly, I'm not really involved in animation related fields, so I'm gonna have to say no.
Okay, fair answer. And so, moving on from that altogether, which school do you have in mind if planning to attend at all?
If you want to work as an illustrator like me, I don't really think it's necessary, because in this day and age, it's possible to really gain lots of knowledge from things like YouTube, or you can learn online sites such as the Colosso, like we talked about. I don't use it now, but I do think it's necessary and important to get feedback from highly skilled people when I don't feel like I'm growing while learning alone. I think it's necessary and important. I'll look for a teacher in the future.
Okay, I do understand that. And you can always learn from someone else. So, studying and practicing, it's kind of like having a reference, isn't it? Like having somebody, like a reference sheet. Having a teacher is kind of like having a reference sheet. You learn from another person. Or something like that, right? So, do you feel that you will be benefiting from taking these classes at all?
I think I'd benefit greatly from them. I think there would be a risk sometimes of losing time without being aware of important elements. And teachers could help save time with answering things like technique.
Okay. That's actually really good. I never thought of it that way, because that actually really does save time instead of struggling through and trying to figure things out on your own. Instead of trying to create something from scratch, you use a technique that's already created. Yes. Okay. And so, what is the average price of your classes and the length of your programs over there that you will be taking?
I mean, that's sort of hard for me to answer since I'm not really attending classes at the moment. But if I were to attend classes, I'd probably take a course on something that costs about 10,000 yen a month.
Okay. And did you have any challenges that would make it difficult for you, that made it difficult for you, that made you want to stop like making art or doing illustrations, such as language barriers, financial issues, work, education?
There's a time when you sort of feel like your drawings don't show any growth, they're not really improving, and they seem to stay that way for several years. When I see other illustrators who are just starting out getting better and better, I sort of wonder why I'm the only one that feels left behind.
You know, that's not the first time I've heard that. I've heard that before from other friends who state that that's a normal stagnant feeling, but you're actually still improving during that time. You just don't notice it. So that could be the problem that you're facing. And actually you're still improving, you just don't notice that you are. So, do you have a dream illustrator that you wish to work with?
There's an illustrator who I admire, but I don't particularly want to work with him or her. If anything, I'd like to be in the same league as them in terms of drawing ability.
Oh, okay. So you want to be like referred just like them. So when people think of them, they also think of you. So what is your favorite illustration style?
Well, for me, I like to use like thickly painted lines in animated styles.
Oh, okay. I noticed that in your drawing style. Not the sketch, but the actual line art. That you use thickly painted lines for your line art. So I do see that in your ending process. So, let's see. Explain your layering and why it's important for you, and your detail and the detail of your process.
Well, I use about 5 layers for figures and roughly 10 to 20 layers for like backgrounds and effects. I try to keep the number of images as small as possible for the 3 following reasons. 1, to eliminate switching between layers and to reduce unnecessary operations. 2, to prevent confusion about what's drawn there when there are too many layers. 3, if a large correction occurs, it's easier to just kind of make that correction if there are fewer layers.
That makes a lot of sense. So my problem is I use too many layers when it comes to coloring, like rendering. So I will render a jewel and it could have like 10 different layers, and I have 10 different layers. A dress have 10-20 different layers. So every item have its own, have many different layers. So it's amazing that you choose to do it with such few layers, because I would be afraid of destructive art in that case. I do like your idea though. So, are you open to taking on an apprentice?
Fortunately, just not right now.
Alright, and where are you from? And how does your environment affect your work?
Well, being from Japan, I think I'm still very influenced by many Japanese artworks.
Alright, so who are your biggest artistic influences?
The creator of the Tao project, Zune, this creator is so talented that he can handle all the elements of game production by himself. So illustration, music, story planning, and programming. When I first learned about him, I was shocked. Just because until then, I'd read articles in magazines that introduced game production, where each professional was working as a team. And I thought that was the norm. That's how it usually is. But I sort of never imagined that a single person could do all of those things. So I was reminded that it is possible for a human being to do it on their own.
Yeah, it is. And it's incredible when a person does that. But it is so unusual. If you put your mind to it, you can do it all. And if that's what you wish to do, I am rooting for you. I hope you can do your best, and I believe in you. And it's something to look forward to, because then you can do it all from your head and create anything that you want. So, yes, I believe you can be like the creator of the Toho project. Alright, so, there are other programs out there to use that can teach you how to animate. There's things such as OpenToons, Animate CC, TV Paint, Clip Studio Paint EX version, Krita, Blender, Toma 2D. What's driving you towards live 2D, if it is?
Well, I'm interested in it, but I don't really have thoughts on touching it right now, but someday.
Okay. Many people believe if they go into the art field, they'll become a starving artist. Do you believe that to be the case? Why or why not?
Whether it's in the field of electronics or IT, if you don't have an approach that meets the needs of your clients, you can be a company that doesn't sell your product, such as illustrations or the electronics. I don't think it's limited to just artists, but all products.
Alright, that makes sense. And are you planning to continue with your art full-time or as a hobby?
I do it mostly as a hobby and to earn money from time to time. But if I could make a living doing just illustrations, then I'd like to do so.
Alright, and now tell me about your favorite medium of art.
I like digital art, computers, and game hardware from like the 80s and 90s.
Okay. So when drawing, obviously people gather references from different sources. How do you usually go about collecting yours?
When I draw VTubers, I often use like VTuber fan art from others as references.
Alright, so you're definitely a fan of VTubers. Describe how art is important to society.
We no longer really think of art as part of the infrastructure of our daily lives. Although we may think of pictures and sounds as mere entertainment, a company logo or a road sign could be very inconvenient if they didn't exist. Like without certain illustrations or particular logos, the sounds of an earthquake or a siren could be dangerous if we didn't have a good design.
So I definitely agree with you, and how that colors and influence from that type of art can transfer over into our illustrations and how they appear in our backgrounds as well. So what motivates you to create?
Well, when I think of things like, what would happen if I combine this character with this situation? I kind of want to make it happen.
All right. So how do you define success as an artist?
I'd consider myself successful when I can make a living only from my earnings as an artist.
All right. Let's go ahead and go to the final thoughts. So, how has animation changed your life?
Well, there are times when my life has had to make changes due to like video games, but not anime.
So you were more into the video games and it changed your life because you were more influenced by the video games instead of anime? And where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I think I'll become an illustrator who sort of follows the trend of the times. If VTubers are still trendy, cool, I'll continue. Or I could be in a completely different field.
That makes sense. So keeping up with the times. Cute, cute! And what are some books recommendations you have for my subscribers that may want to get into this field?
I'd recommend the illustrated guidebook published by illustrator Saito Naoki. There are over 15 books you can choose from, so just pick the one that suits you best.
Okay, and if you can give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
That there are a lot of mistakes on the 2010 drawing course website, so don't be fooled. Some people say that copying is pointless, but it's actually very important, so I hope you'll do it.
And lastly, how can people contact you?
Currently, I'm on X or VGen.
All right, and it looks like that concludes our interview. Thank you everyone for staying with us and meeting Kurenai Kenta, a wonderful illustrator here, and be sure to see them on X or VGen. Here is their social media tags. Make sure to visit them, and they'll also be listed below in the video. So thank you. Have a nice day. Cute, cute.